Texas A&M is expected to have a pretty big 2025 season, but could there be some road bumps along the way?
You are Locked On Aggies, your daily podcast on the Texas A&M Aggies, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome in. You are Locked On the Texas A&M Aggies. I am your host, Matt Galatzan of Texas A&M Aggies on SI. I'm joined today by Zach Dimmitt, my colleague over at Texas A&M Aggies on SI. Thank you for making Locked On Aggies your first listen every day, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Football season is around the corner. Visit the FanDuel app today and start planning your future bets now. Speaking of future bets, Zach, we have football season in just a couple of weeks. Everybody's very excited about what Texas A&M is going to be able to do on the field. Can they shake the 8-4 stigma? Can they make a college football playoff berth? Can they get, just take things to the next level? We also know, it's going to be a rough road. They have a tough schedule. You just kind of go down the list and you got games against Notre Dame in week 3. You got a game against Florida. You got at LSU. You have South Carolina with Lenora Sellers. You got the Texas Longhorns. Those are all very well-known commodities. But there could also be a couple of speed bumps along the way that they might want to look out for. This has been something that has kind of bit them in the butt in the past, especially in the last couple of years, losing games that they are not supposed to lose or, just inexplicably making mistakes that cost them a game. In this particular instance, we're going to look at some of those speed bumps. We're going to try to pick our, games that I think Aggie fans need to watch out for. It may look easy on the schedule, but it could spell some trouble. I'm going to let you go first. What do you think is Texas A&M's biggest roadblock this year, or speed bump going into this, or landmine, I guess, as Urban Meyer would put it, on this schedule?
Yeah, I don't see anything as catastrophic as Appalachian State loss early in the season. I don't see anything like that happening against UTSA or Utah State. I mean, UTSA is a good program. I don't see anything like that happening. A&M should be 2-0 headed into that Notre Dame game. But as we talked about on this show a little bit before, I actually predicted that A&M's first loss would be at Arkansas on October 18th. So a road game, it's kind of hard to say that's a trap game. You're already at a huge disadvantage on the road when it comes to SEC, no matter what the team is. But yeah, I don't know. I think Arkansas, they're not really going to be a contender this year, and so they really fall into that trap category for me. You can maybe make the case for Auburn as well on September 27th. That's at College Station. But I don't know. I feel like Arkansas will be one of those games where, it is a rivalry with A&M, of course, but no one's really expecting a lot from Arkansas, and A&M will be maybe looking ahead towards LSU next week. They just played Florida the week before that. So Arkansas right in the middle of those two kind of, speaks trap game to me. So we'll see how that goes. But yeah, like I said, I don't see any Appalachian State sort of, level losses for A&M this year. I don't think this team is, as low as that team was. So I think Arkansas is a good trap game pick. And, they beat Tennessee last year. Tennessee ended up making it to the college football playoff. Arkansas, brings back Taylor Green as well, a quarterback. So, could be some magic there in Fayetteville when A&M comes to town. But we'll see. I think regardless, even if A&M loses that game, they're still going to have a terrific season. But there's always going to be that one loss you kind of look back on and regret. I think the Arkansas game October 18th is probably where that's going to be.
Yeah, I tend to agree with you on that one. I have a different pick in mind, but in regards to Arkansas, that's always a tough game. It's a rivalry game. Those teams always play each other extremely close. A&M has had the edge in the series for the most part over the last few years. I believe they've won the last 3 and have won the vast majority of the games dating all the way back to 2011 when Texas A&M was in the SEC. Arkansas, I think, has only beaten them once since then. That said, 7 of the last 10 games have been decided by single-digit points. It's always a close one. A&M has just seemed to have the edge as at the end of those games to kind of push things over the hump for the most part. So maybe Arkansas gets over the hump and kind of sticks one to A&M this year and kind of ruins their what Zach thinks is going to be a perfect season for them at that point. So that'll certainly be one to watch. My trap game, I was kind of waffling between a couple. My first pick was Arkansas, but since you picked that one, I'm going to go in a different direction. I think it's Florida, and I know that doesn't sound necessarily like a trap game in terms of, it's the Florida Gators. They have DJ Lagway. But it's a game that I think, especially after last year, Texas A&M dominated them in Gainesville. A&M is expected to be a better football team this year. Florida is very much an unknown. We know, we think we know what we have in DJ Lagway, but it's still very much projection. And, he's got all the talent in the world, but can he put it together consistently throughout a season? We don't know. This game is at Kyle Field. I feel like A&M is going to be favored probably by a touchdown or more. It just feels like if everything comes together for Florida in this game, it could be one that really kind of sneaks up and bites the Aggies in the butt. And I say that because DJ Lagway can do everything. He can do it with his arm. He can do it with his legs. They have a good ground game behind him. They have a very good offensive line. And A&M has struggled to stop the run in years past. If that is something that is still an issue in 2025, I could very easily see the Gators coming in to College Station and to Kyle Field and really stealing one from Texas A&M's nose.
Yeah, I like that pick, and I think last season that was one of A&M's best wins for sure in the swamp. And DJ Lagway, he showed a lot of potential near the end of last year. But that game, Graham Mertz, he got the start, and I believe he got injured actually. And then DJ Lagway had to come in late in the game, didn't perform really well. 6 of 13, 54 yards, touchdown, 2 picks. And so, yeah, you didn't really get to see, the full arsenal for Florida in that game. They didn't really start coming on until later in the season, where it was kind of the opposite for A&M. They started off really well in SEC play, obviously, and then fell off near the end. So, yeah, kind of interesting to see what these two teams will look like when they, rematch again, this time in College Station. Florida definitely going to be looking for some revenge for sure. But A&M, Florida obviously is a team no one's going to be sleeping on necessarily, but definitely could, spell some trap game there just because of the uncertainties, like you said. So, yeah, that's going to be big for me, seeing what it's like for DJ Lagway, in a full game instead of just coming on late. So, yeah, we'll see what happens, but I think that'll be an interesting game for sure. And just being at Kyle Field and based off what A&M did last season, I think A&M, still going to be able to pull off the win there, but definitely should be entertaining for sure.
Yeah, my other honorable mention, I think, is Missouri. I think Missouri is going to be a lot better than people think they're going to be next season. So heading into Columbia at Faro Field is going to be a lot tougher for the Aggies than I think most people think. But let's change gears. We're going to head into our next segment after this break, and we're going to talk about some position groups and ones that we think might be being overlooked for Texas A&M. So stick with us. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. August 26th is officially FanDuel Features Day, a brand new holiday for football fans who live for bold predictions and preseason hunches. For just 24 hours, FanDuel is giving you deals on NFL season predictions. So whether you're calling for your MVP, eyeing a long shot division winner, or ready to crown your Super Bowl champ before week 1 even kicks off, this is your moment. So take a flyer on your MVP. I'm probably going to pick Josh Allen. I know it's, they don't typically have repeats with the NFL MVP, but I feel like he's just going to have an amazing year. So that's going to be my pick. You can make your own. You can crown your champion in August if you want to. I'm going to pick the Bills. I think the Bills are going to win the Super Bowl this year. I think they're going to play the Rams in the Super Bowl, and they're going to win, assuming Matthew Stafford stays healthy. And you could also play a parlay on your division winner dark horses. Don't pick the Cowboys, though. I think that would be a terrible idea. But regardless, you can visit the FanDuel app today. Start planning your future bets now, because Futures Day is one day and one day only. FanDuel, play your game. All right, Zach, it is time to get into some positional talk here for Texas A&M in 2025. We pretty much know what we have in a lot of these positions for the Aggies. Marcel Reed is still a bit of a question mark at quarterback in terms of whether or not he's going to take the step forward that everybody hopes he's going to take. But we know what his skill set is. We know what the Aggies have at running back. We know what the Aggies have at offensive line across the board. But there's a couple of different position groups here that may not seem like they're top of the line or elite or whatever by SEC standards, but we think that they're going to play a much more vital role in what the Aggies are going to accomplish in 2025. And I think that for you, that starts with tight end, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, so I think, and I've talked about it a little bit on the show before as well, but I just think the tight ends have gotten maybe a little bit overlooked from maybe some people outside of College Station. Receiver, running back, like you mentioned. I think those two position groups, offensive line as well, those three position groups are going to be, just fine for A&M next season. Obviously the staff did very well in the portal when it came to, receiver, and also bringing back Terry Bussey as well. Bringing a freshman like Jerome Miles. But yeah, tight ends for me, I feel like have been overlooked as a result of all the attention on the other groups, which is fine. That says a lot about where A&M's offense, is headed potentially. But I just think that when you add three transfers, all experienced, to a tight end room that already had Theo Mellon-Orstrom, who's very talented in his own right, I just think that that's going to offer a lot of security blankets for Marcel Reed and kind of help him in his development during the season. Amari Niblack, obviously the Texas Longhorns transfer, played at Alabama as well. So this is his third SEC team. I think he's going to do just fine. Didn't have the season he wanted last year at Texas. But I think if they just maybe focus on him more in a pass catching role in College Station next year, I think he'll be just fine. Having Theo Mellon-Orstrom as well as another weapon alongside him should be nice. Then you have, Nate Borkacher, the Nebraska transfer, and then Micah Riley, the Auburn transfer, both a graduate. Borkacher is a graduate transfer, Micah Riley is not, but both still experienced. So you bring in three guys that are super experienced at tight end alongside Orstrom. It's going to be hard to see how they all, get their own reps and, get their own looks. There may be lots of games where none of them see any targets, but they're still offering a lot of value when it comes to blocking and in the run and pass game and the play action game. So I just think those guys are going to be really important for Marcel Reed, and they're going to get overlooked maybe by some defenses as well because of all the weapons that they have at receiver and running back. So, tight ends could prove to be pretty vital down the final stretch of the season and during SEC play. So we'll see how that goes. But I just think having, two guys with SEC experience and then two guys that are just already experienced, already, that should prove pretty vital for A&M. And I'm expecting a big season from Niblack in particular. I just think he's, a really talented guy when it comes to catching the ball. He's more of a, big receiver, but not exactly, quick enough to be a receiver, but he's got that height, he's got that length. And I think, you're going to see a few highlights from him this upcoming season. So yeah, tight ends is the underrated position group for me.
Yeah, I mean, I love that pick. That was going to be my pick before we started the show, and then you came in and swept it out from under my feet. So I think we're kind of on the same page there. I think the tight ends are going to be absolutely critical, especially for Marcel Reed. If he's going to have a successful season in 2025, he needs some reliable pass catchers at those positions, and you need another playmaker down the field outside of your receiver group. And Amari Niblack can be just that. So I really like that pick, Zach. I'm gonna go on the other side of the ball. Since you picked tight ends, I'm gonna go with corner. And I know that Will Lee is a kind of a known commodity there at one of the corner spots. But I think that kind of maybe not secretly is probably not the right word, but I think kind of flying under the radar. This might be one of the A&M's deepest positions. In terms of talent, Will Lee, we know what we have with him. And then you talk about, Dezz Ricks on the other side, who, this is going to be his sophomore season. Last year, he was good at times. He was a little bit inconsistent. I think this guy for a corner has as much physical talent that you're going to find at the corner position in the SEC. It's just about kind of putting everything together and being more consistent. I think he's a phenomenally good football player when he's playing at his best. Then you add Julian Humphrey from the transfer portal from Georgia, who's one of the fastest players in the SEC, who has SEC experience. I mean, he started, I think, 10 games for Georgia last year, or at least played in 10 games for Georgia last year, started a good number of those. He's a super talented player. Then you talk about Javon Thomas, a former 4-star recruit who's played well when he's gotten his opportunities. You talk about Adonis Curry as well, who's an exciting freshman coming in. Kobe Sellers is another very exciting freshman that they've got on that depth chart. And then you go to the nickel corner spot, and you got Tyreek Chappell coming back, who a lot of people I feel like have forgotten about. He was one of this team's best defensive players last season before he got injured. He got injured very early on before the Florida game, was out for the rest of the season. He was a major part of what they were expected to do on defense last season. And you could tell that once he left or once he got injured and wasn't able to play anymore, that secondary kind of took a little bit of a step back. So having him back is going to be massive. You also have Jordan Shaw that you can put in that nickel spot, who's another very talented player. So there's a ton of bodies at this corner position that I think are very talented, very good football players, and could, help Texas A&M kind of take a step forward in pass defense and be the kind of pass defense that we expect them to be, frankly, last year.
Yeah, you mentioned Chappell. Mike Elko spoke very highly of him, and that if he had, not been injured, just imagine what A&M's defense could have done, even more. And so, you hear that praise from coaches. It really, goes a long way and shows a lot about, what they see in him. So, I think the secondary as a whole, super talented. Bryce Anderson at safety as well. I mentioned Will Lee, of course. Dalton Brooks, another name has been the headlines for some wrong reasons recently. We'll see how that goes with him at the safety position as well. I think he offers, great experience and a lot of talent there. But, obviously got to see how all that off the field stuff plays out for him. If anything, maybe he gets, suspended for a half, suspended for a game by the team. But, not sure how that's going to play out. But regardless, once everyone's at full or once the the room is at a full strength, I think it's going to be one of the most talented in the conference for sure. And Julian Humphrey, he was a big name earlier this offseason in the transfer portal. Had looks from tons of different programs. Texas was one of them as well. And so the fact that A&M was able to get him, not only away from Georgia but also prevent him from heading to Austin. That was a pretty big deal there. And you see a lot of transfer work this offseason at receiver for A&M, but you could argue that Humphrey was one of the most important pieces in the portal that A&M got this offseason. So really look for him to have a good year. And then of course, like we mentioned with Will Lee, I just think he's going to prove hopefully to the entire country that he's one of the better corners in the nation. And so if you have those two guys locking down, the top receivers on the opposing team, and then a lot of the other talent behind them on the depth chart, that spells a lot of good success for A&M in the pass defense next season, which is one of the areas that they've been looking to improve on. So excited to see those names in there, and hopefully, it can turn into a great success in the pass game.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. It's going to be a very exciting position group, and one that I think could take a step forward for sure. And then you kind of, there's a couple of other spots in there I think you could probably talk about a little bit. You talk about the interior of the defensive line, adding Tyler Onyedem from Iowa State. You got DJ Sanders coming in, Chase Sims coming in as freshmen, who are really going to help improve that run defense and that wall in the middle of the defensive line, which should be huge. But I think that there's a lot of different. I think that this is a very deep and talented Texas A&M football team. So that's definitely something to think about going forward in some of these positions that maybe we haven't thought about, like corner and tight end, that could be could prove critical to their success in 2025. All right, Zach, let's change gears one more time. We're going to go to one more break, and then we're going to come back and talk about how Shemar Stewart just can't seem to keep his name out of the news lately. So stick with us, and we'll be right back, and we'll talk about that next. Today's episode is brought to you by Wayfair. As summer winds down, there's something nice about getting back into a routine you love. And Wayfair makes it easy to set yourself up for the season ahead. From bedding and linens, storage solutions for every room, Wayfair is your one-stop shop to refresh your home. I just moved into a new apartment a few months ago, and I used Wayfair and to order a few new pieces for my apartment, including a new bar and a new desk. And the delivery was fast and it was free, even for something as big as this desk that I just got that I'm actually doing this podcast from right now. So that, thank you to Wayfair for that one. Get organized, get refreshed, and back to routine for way less. Head to wayfair.com right now to shop all things home. That's wayfair.com. Wayfair, every style, every home. All right, Zach, we are back from our break. And why can't Shemar Stewart keep his name out of the news? I don't know. Even when his contract was, his contract was a thing. It got handled. It seemed like all any NFL Aggie talk, all the NFL Aggie talk was around Shemar Stewart. And I mean, rightfully so. That was kind of an unprecedented deal. Then he signs the contract, and immediately, he starts practice highlights start coming out, and he's doing really well, and he's getting some pub, and he's struggling on a couple reps, and people are slamming him. It just seems like he's been a very polarizing figure so far for the Bengals. And of course, in practice the other day, another thing happens. He hits Joe Burrow during practice. The rookie hits the superstar NFL quarterback, arguably the best quarterback in the NFL. The guy wearing the red jersey, your hopes, your dreams, everything for the Bengals riding on Joe Burrow, and your dumb rookie butt hits your superstar quarterback in practice and not just bumps into him, knocks him down. And then it starts this whole big brawl at Bengals practice, and players picking sides. Even the defensive players after that happened looked back and they were like, "Oh my God, what are you doing?" Definitely a touchy situation there for Cincinnati, but it's for me. I don't really put a whole lot of stock in it. I think it's Shemar Stewart just trying to beat his man and make a play. He may have lost his footing a little bit and got a little overzealous, which is kind of what you want to see in a rookie to a certain extent. But you also have to be smart enough not to hit Joe frickin' Burrow in the pocket during practice. If you had been a couple inches to the left or a couple inches lower, it could have spelled disaster. You never know what might happen. But, at the end of the day, I think this is much ado about nothing. I think he's going to learn from it.
Yeah, it's like, why couldn't there have been another maybe lesser known Bengals player that does this? No, of course it had to be Shemar Stewart. He has to make headlines this entire offseason, it seems. But no, it's no fault of his own. I think it definitely a learning lesson, and thankfully the Bengals got out of that unscathed. You don't want to see Joe Burrow take some awkward fall onto his wrist. I know he's had finger stuff in the past as well that that he's dealt with, so you just don't want to see that with him at all. But yeah, it's just like, man, why couldn't it have been someone else? Why couldn't it have been Shemar Stewart to avoid these headlines again? But yeah, it definitely a significant moment, definitely a learning lesson for him. And you wonder if maybe the time he spent off the field earlier this offseason when he could have been practicing with the team, maybe that has an impact on how he's going hard during certain reps, and maybe learning when he needs to pull back a little bit. But he is a rookie, of course, and so he's still going to be learning these things. You don't want to see that ever happen again, throughout his career, especially when it comes to a quarterback like Joe Burrow. It's not like they were facing the second team or anything like that. So yeah, but I mean, even his teammates came out and were public in some of the criticisms of Shemar Stewart. Bengals center Ted Karras, I think I'm pronouncing that correctly. The Bengals center, he said, just be smarter about Shemar Stewart. Great player, but come on, man, that's all our hopes and dreams right there. That's a pretty powerful quote. Obviously Joe Burrow, if the Bengals have any chance of making it to the Super Bowl, they got a talented offense, but they need Joe Burrow if they have any chance of wanting to contend and making it back to the Super Bowl where they were at in 2021. So, yeah, I'm really happy for Shemar Stewart that nothing else came out of this and that there's no Joe Burrow injury to report. And then we can all move on from it. But man, it was just this guy cannot stop making headlines this offseason. And now hopefully with the season starting, we can start talking about more positive things and not any of these controversies. We're all excited to see Shemar Stewart get on the field, and now he's on the field, and now it's just more controversies, more headlines surrounding him. So
yeah, absolutely. And I'm sure that he learned a lot from this. He probably got an earful from his defensive line coach, and he's gonna be a little bit more cautious going forward when it comes to Joe Burrow in practice, because that guy is your golden goose and your ticket. If you're gonna do anything, he needs to stay healthy. So, but yeah, we'll see what happens there. I'm sure he's gonna learn a lot from it, but he'll be fine. All right, so that's gonna do it for another episode of Locked On Aggies. Thank you so much for making Locked On Aggies your first listen today. For your second listen, please check out the Portal Show. Brian Smith has the latest rumors, portal entries, and signings. You can be the most informed fan on the rapid changes to the college football landscape. You can find the Portal on YouTube or wherever you listen to your podcasts. Don't forget to like the video, subscribe to our channel, give me a follow on X at Matt Galatzan, and on Texas A&M Aggies on SI. You can follow Zach at Zach Dimmitt 7. That's with 2 M's and 2 T's on X. And we will see you next time.